So hello, welcome back to another SUPboarder video. If you haven't seen one of our SUPboarder videos before, welcome to this. This is a review video of the Thurso Surf Waterwalker range of boards. 3 boards, different sizes, different widths, different lengths, and they will suit different paddlers' weights and abilities. Thurso Surf are an inflatable board brand that are available in many different countries around the world, and they have already got thousands of you on the water already. This is their 2020 Waterwalker range of boards. As I said, it's an all-round range of boards, so it's designed for all-round paddling, a bit of light touring, which is where you can paddle a little bit further, maybe even put a dry bag on the front, stay overnight somewhere, go to a secluded beach. You could even go SUP fishing, you could take your friends out, you could put the dog on the front, you could even go into a bit of light surfing with these sort of boards as well. So a real all-round board that you can do everything on and very much start paddleboarding on as well. In this review, we're going to be talking about transporting these boards, inflating them, what they're like to paddle on the water, and obviously deflating them and getting them back in the bags. And then we're going to speak a little bit about the warranties, a background about the company, and if there's any environmental awareness with the company, and finishing off with which boards would best suit which size paddlers. But before we dive into that, let's talk about the specifications, the sizes of these boards, and the constructions of these boards. So these are the Waterwalker range all-round boards, available in 3 sizes. You can get the 132, which is a brown board there. You can get the 126, which is the sort of aqua color board here, or you can get the 120, which is the yellow colored board. The differences are they're different lengths and widths. The bigger board, the 132, is 11 foot long by 32 inches wide, and it's got a bigger volume. Therefore, it can take larger riders or maybe 2 riders, the dog. It can take more weight in general, the bigger 132. Moving down, you've got the 126. This is a 31 wide board, and it's 10 foot 6 long. So it's a little bit shorter in length and a little bit shorter in the width. It still has a fairly healthy volume to it, so it can still take most paddlers, but it obviously isn't as big as the 132 down there. Finishing off with the smallest board, you can get the 120, and that is a 10 foot board by 30, so you can see they're getting smaller and thinner in the width, and that's going to be better for the lighter paddlers. All these boards are 6 inches thick, and they are finished off with exactly the same refinements, the same deck pads and fittings, which we'll speak about in a minute. The price points for these boards, they all vary. We've got them in dollars, pounds and in euros, and you can see obviously the 120 is the cheapest model, and then you've got the 126, and then obviously the 132, and that's really just because there's more material obviously in the bigger boards. Also up on the screen there, you can see the weights of the boards. They're not the lightest boards on the market, but you do get some good benefits for having a heavy board, which we'll speak about in a minute. At those price points, you do get a complete package. You get a bag, a paddle, a pump, fins, and of course a leash, so you are completely set up, ready to go on the water safely. If we look at the materials of these boards, they have an internal core of drop stitch. What drop stitch is, if you're unaware of it, is a nylon thread which basically is weaved from top to bottom inside the board, and then as the board gets inflated, the fabrics get pulled apart and they're held together with a PVC coating which is around the outside of the boards, and that is a drop stitch material. It's in all of the iSUPs that are made to date, but how you finish off outside of that drop stitch is really what gives your board the extra stiffness and how tough the board really is. These boards are finished off with multiple layers of PVC. They've also got carbon bands down the rails of the board, which not only gives you more stiffness, but obviously it's a lot tougher and it can take a lot more knocks and rubs down the rails of the boards. That is the sort of thing that will add onto the weight of the boards, but it will make the boards much stiffer. And when you're paddling, stiffness of an inflatable paddleboard is really key. You don't want to be buying yourself a board that you inflate and it turns out looking like a banana. You really want a stiff, flat board, and that's going to make your paddling much more enjoyable. We will speak about stiffness and paddling on the water in a minute, so let's crack on with what these boards are like to transport on your back in the backpack. The backpack is a fairly comfortable backpack. It could do with a higher shoulder strap, but actually it is comfortable to walk sort of fairly long distances. The wheels are placed on the front edge of the backpack, which is nice, they don't dig into your back, and the backpack itself is a good length, so it fits on your back comfortably. For the price point of these boards, the backpack is actually really good. It's well padded around the shoulders. It's nice to see it put into a price point package like this. When it comes to inflating your boards, the good thing about these packages that comes with these water walkers is you get a good size pump. Now this is the pump in the bag it comes with, and actually folds down, has a removable foot pegs, and it's got removable handles, so you can get it in a pretty small bag. But this is a big pump. This is a triple action, double chamber, multi-way pump, so you can get a lot of air in your board really quickly, which is a really good thing because these boards are 6 inches thick. They have a large amount of volume, so if you had a normal sort of a single chamber pump that pumped maybe on the upstroke, on the downstroke, like lots of other brands have, it would still take you a while to get the air into the board. But this pump, it's got 3 settings, so you have 3 different ways to get the most amount of air in your board. You have a setting for putting a large amount of air in quickly, but when the pumping gets hard, you can put it up a notch, and then you can reduce the amount of air you're putting into the board, but obviously it takes the fatigue off your arms. And then you can finish it off with the higher pressure setting just to get the last bits of higher pressure air into that board to make it nice and stiff. There's a recommended pressure of 12 to 15 psi, but it has a maximum pressure of 20 psi, which shows these boards can take that higher pressure. When we used and tested them, we had them all inflated to the recommended 15 psi. So you're going to get on the water fairly quickly with your pump, and you're also going to get on the water really quickly with the fin system this comes with. Now we have seen this fin system on another brand and we were really impressed with it then. Thurso have got like a clip-in fin system, so you slide the fin in and you lock it back. You have a little lever that locks the fins in place. All 3 fins, so you get one bigger central fin and you get 2 sort of smaller side fins, what we would call a 2+1 fin setup. They all have the same fin box system. The nice thing is there is actually spare tabs that they supply with the fins that come with the package, so if you do break a tab you can replace that as well, and I'm sure you can get hold of those tabs really easily, available aftermarket as well. The fin system is very quick. The fins themselves are nice and stiff, so they're going to add to your performance, to your straight line tracking, and if you were taking it surfing. Really do like this fin system, and even with a bit of sand in the board when you're pumping it up on the beach, the fins don't get stuck. They still go in nice and easily, and it really is child's play, as you might have seen in one of our social videos with my daughter actually clipping these fins in. Walking these boards to the water, it's easy because the central handle is in the middle of the board, which is always nice, and it's a nice neoprene back central handle, so it's fairly comfy to carry. Because these boards are 6 inches thick, maybe the lighter, smaller people might find these boards a little bit harder to carry for 2 reasons. One is because it's a heavier board overall, but 2 is your hand is further away from you when you're carrying it because you've got a bigger board under your arm. Obviously other brands with 4 inches, 4.5, 5 inches, a thinner baseboard might be better for the much lighter weight of people. But really, to answer that, if you're still looking at these boards as a lighter person, there is lots of handles all around these boards, which is really great for obviously if you want to carry a board down with 2 of you, one at the front, one at the back, or you can carry 2 boards together with the handles quite easily. So having handles everywhere really does make boards much easier to transport, moving around on and off the water. Just before you're going to get onto the water, you obviously want to put your leash on. All the boards come with their Thurso color coordinated leashes with the right board, which is really nice. It's a coiled leash, it's a nice leash, it's not too heavy, fits around the ankle nicely, and it's going to keep you connected to the board, which is an absolute must with paddleboarding. Do not go paddleboarding without your leash on, even in the flattest, calmest of conditions. Even if you're a good swimmer, it really is a must to wear a leash all the time. Now's a good time to talk about the paddle that comes as standard with the package. You get a carbon nylon blade paddle, which means it's a really lightweight paddle that has a good stiffness in the shaft. The stiffer the shaft when you're paddling means you're going to have more response, so you're going to be able to push your board faster and easier through the water. Having a nylon blade, it still means it's pretty indestructible. The kids can still use it as a spade and you haven't really got to worry about it, especially if you're paddling or pushing off of rocks. You can get glass fiber carbon blades as well, but obviously you've got to be a little bit more careful with them. So having a nylon blade on here really does give it just 100% bulletproof sort of nature. The blade shape isn't the most refined, but at this stage when you're entering the sport, you're really after a paddle that's a bit lighter and stiffer, and the blade shape can really come later when you're really trying to paddle much faster or getting much more performance out of your paddleboarding. It's a 3-piece paddle, you can clip it apart, very easy push pin system, breaks into 3 sections so it goes in the bag nice and easy, and it has a full adjustable height section with the heights written on there so you can clip it back. Nice grippy texture on the handle, and it's very easy to use. A good entry level price point paddle that comes with this package. So when you're jumping on these boards for the first time, obviously the widths are going to make a difference. The 32 wide, the 31, and then the 30 wide, the wider board is going to be the easiest one to use because you've got that extra width, but it is going to be slower to paddle. So you don't want to be on a board that's too wide for your body weight. We'll speak about those weights and who should suit what board best in a minute. The nice thing about paddling these style and shape of boards on the water is they're really easy. They're really easy and they're great for getting into paddleboarding, or they're great for just having an all-round paddleboard shape. You're going to be able to do all the sort of all-round stuff you want to do on this board. They paddle really well in a straight line because they have 3 fins and they're a nice size, so they are going to give you and keep you in that straight line, keep your tracking a bit easier than you would do if you had 3 smaller fins, or maybe even 1 single fin. So that's a nice feature there if you wanted to take them surfing, because you've got your side fins on the rails there, going to give you a little bit more performance if you're trying to catch the odd wave. I mean, you're not going to be riding big waves with these sort of inflatable paddle boards because they're quite thick in the rails, but for catching a few waves, maybe catching the first ever waves of your life, you are going to have a lot of fun. They also feel really stiff under your feet because they are 6 inches thick, because they've got lots of materials over the drop stitch and they've got carbon rails down the side. We put these boards into our deflection test, which is where we put them on a gap of 1.5 meters apart, and then we put a weight of 75 kilograms in the center of the board, and then we measure how much the board bends or deflects. We've done this with all our iSUPs that we've tested, and these boards are pretty stiff. They only dropped 12 millimeters. We tested the 132 over there, but really every board should be exactly the same because they're the same construction, and the widths and the lengths don't really make a difference to the deflection test. So a pretty stiff board. Obviously you can see there the construction, the carbon rails, that all keeps that stiffness, and that was at 15 psi as well. Otherwise, when you're paddling it, the first thing you notice is the bungees, the D-rings. There's lots of stuff on this board, which is nice to see. Large bungees up at the front. So if you are wanting to put a bigger dry bag up there, you can put a bigger dry bag. They are nicely placed so they're not too far forward. The main section of the bungees is just here, but you have got the slightly smaller, not so wide D-rings up the front there, so you can get that bigger dry bag, or maybe put your flip-flops or your lighter stuff up at the front there. That's nice to see. Again, all the bungees are color coded with the colors of the boards. At the back there is a small bungee system that really you're not going to get a massive amount on, and maybe some would argue that it gets in the way if you're doing these step back turns, but you could easily remove that bungee system if you didn't want to have it. But it's handy to put a drink or your flip-flops down there as well, so you have got a large amount of storage on these boards. Obviously you're going to get more storage on the bigger boards than you are the smaller one, because it's just a longer board in general. Other things you'll see, you have D-rings on the sides here. You have 4 D-rings on all these boards. These are for the sort of kayak seats if you want to go down that route. They don't come as standard with kayak seats, but you can buy them and clip them on as optional extras. Up at the front you've got your GoPro, sort of small selfie camera mount that you can clip in, nicely built in. It's nice to have it there. Many of you won't use it, a lot of you will use it, but it's there. And it also comes with a ram mount screw, so you can screw thread your camera mounts if you've already got some onto that point as well. On the side of the board, which is nice and neat down here, you have your paddle holder. You could use this for several things. You could use this for walking in and out of the water. You clip your paddle on nice and easy. You could use it for if you're doing yoga. You could use it if you're maybe going SUP fishing and you want to get your paddle out the way. It's easy to get at because it's right by your feet. Talking about your feet, one of the features I really do like is the deck pad. It's small little T's, the Thurso logo printed right over the board, and you've got different colorways cut into the EVA deck pad. It's just a nice little feature and it just looks pretty classy. It's nicely finished off. You've got a nice deck pad further forward, so if you're paddling in surf stance, which is where you have your feet on the center line in front of each other, then obviously you've got a nice area to put your front foot, and it goes fairly far back on the board, but there isn't any kick pad, which is a raised EVA you do see on some more surf-based boards. So talking about weight ranges, what sort of weights you should be putting on each board. Obviously the smaller 120 is still going to take up to probably 85-90 kilos, but it'll probably suit up to about 80 kilos would be a really good entry-level board like this. Maybe if you're a little bit taller, you might want to go for the slightly wider 126 because it offers a little bit more width. Weights of 126 take up to about 90 kilos without a problem, but still maybe around 85-88 kilos would be the better bet for this base board. If you're more than that, let's say you're up to the 115 kilos, look towards the wider 132. Just that extra width there will just make it a little bit more stable, and you've got the extra length which will help you with the glide, make the board move faster and quicker across the water. Getting these boards off the water, deflating them, packing them up, putting them in the bags. Obviously deflating them is really easy. You just pop the pin down, the air comes out, and then you can just roll the board up from the nose, clip the fins off and roll it up as tight as you can to get it in the bag. This is probably one of the negatives really. The bigger board does fit in the bag, but you are going to have to get that air out of it and roll it up so the fins are sort of not sticking up too much, so they're nice and flush when they go in the bag. You can get it in the bag, but you are going to have to concentrate a little bit more and make sure your fin boxes are positioned in the right place. When you get it in the bag, it's got clips and straps so you can keep it in bag in place. You can get your pump and your paddle in there, and the paddle obviously breaks down because it's a 3-piece paddle. And then carrying it and putting it on your back is exactly the same as when you carry it to the beach. So a little bit more information about the brand Thurso. I've been making boards for quite a few years. As I said, they've got thousands of you on the water already. You've got a lot of reviews online that a lot of people are happy with the products. There's a 2-year warranty with all of these boards, so they do seem to be a good brand to invest and buy into. We're starting to look at environmental awareness of brands now on SUPboarder, how they're packaged, how they come, what sort of materials they put in the board. Unfortunately, Thurso haven't got any recyclable materials that we're aware about on these boards, and the packaging, they are still wrapped up in a fair bit of plastic, but they do come in a cardboard box. No doubt by us highlighting this and other people asking about it, Thurso will concentrate on recycling as much materials as possible. But at the moment, they haven't got anything in the packaging that sort of shows their environmental awareness. So finishing off with pros and cons and value for money. Well, pros, you're getting a lot of good quality board for your money. I really like the way that it's got big bungees on the front here. Yes, you've got a little one that you might not be able to get that much on the back, but they've got it on there as well. There are so many inflatable paddleboards that haven't really taken advantage of actually having a decent sized bungee up at the front. You can always take it off if you're not going to use it, but it is there. The handles, the fittings, it's got everything, these boards, which is nice to see. The GoPro mount already there, great to see. Paddle holder are down the side. As I said, it really has got everything, so it's nice that these boards are well finished off with that. Other pros, definitely I think these boards are going to last. They've got a lot of materials on these boards, especially down the rails with the carbon reinforcing. They are going to be able to take some knocks, and I really do like the fin system. Cons, the downside to having all that material is you do have a heavier base board. They are fairly heavy. It is to be expected, but if you are maybe a lighter person that is struggling to carry equipment, or you've got to walk further to transport your inflatable paddleboard to your paddle location, maybe these boards might not be ones to look at, but they do come with fairly comfortable bags, so that sort of can battle that issue. But the weight is the negative, I would say, on this. And also the only other negative we have is the bags are nicely fitting for these boards, but if they were a little bit bigger, it would be a bit easier for us to get them in if we weren't that on it when we're rolling them up. Definitely the 132 could do with a slightly bigger bag to get the board in. The 120, the board goes in the bag fine, but it's one of those things that could improve in the future. Value for money, well, you do get a lot on your board for the value. They are sitting at the price point I would expect them to be in the market. They are not the most expensive, they're not the cheapest, but you do get a lot for your value. And if you do have that sort of money, I've no doubt that these boards, with their construction and how they're finished, are going to last years and years and years, and you're going to get lots and lots of enjoyment out of them. I hope you found this video interesting and informative. Give it a like if it's helped you, give it a dislike if it hasn't. Let us know how can we improve it, and also check out SUPboardermag.com where we'll have this full review if you're not watching it on there. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and of course if you're really getting into SUP, you can find lots more technique, features and all extra videos you don't see on YouTube on SUPboarder Pro, which is our subscription service. Go check it out. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time on another SUPboarder video.